International Olympic Committee. IOC is a global, non-governmental, non-profit organization that is responsible to organize Olympic Games and spread wider Olympic movement to around the world. The IOC was founded in 1894 by Pierre de Coubertin, a French educator and historian, or better known as the founder of modern Olympic Games. The IOC headquarters is based in Lausanne, in Switzerland. The Olympic Games itself is held for every 2 years with a division of 2 categories, Summer and Winter Olympics, that will be held alternately. The IOC doesn't have an official members of delegates from the states, rather than individual members that represent their respective countries, which currently IOC have 107 active members around the world. The IOC as an organization have several major roles, such as decides which cities that will be hosting the next Olympic Games, sets rules for sport competitions, cooperation with other international sport federations such as FIFA, FIBA, World Athletics, and others, promotes Olympic values such as fair play, excellence, and respect, and decides policies on gender equality, ethical sport, and athlete protection. Even though IOC is not a state, it has huge political influence. Through hosting the Olympics, it can affect national reputation, city development, international cooperation, and global media narrative. Because it shapes global rules and opportunities in sports, it is an important IO to analyze through feminism in IR.
Before I explain about the analysis of International Olympic Committee through the lens of feminism, we need to know what is exactly feminism. Feminism is a perspective that explains about gender that influence global politics, including distributions of power, representations, and also about whose voice are excluded or included. And feminism believes that gender, which is referred to social expectations that is influencing global politics or global politics behavior, also including international organizations. And in this case, I would like to explain about how feminism see International Olympic Committee as an international organization that is marginalizing the feminine group, or which is in this case is women. I would like to explain it in 3 points. The first point is about representations of the IOC. Historically, IOC is male-dominated because back then women were not allowed to join IOC because IOC was established in the 1894 while women started to join IOC in 1981. And it's nearly 90 years later after the IOC was established. And this shows how the representations of women back then were very limited. Even though women started to join in the 1981, women still very limited in the leadership positions, both in the leadership positions and in the sport competitions. And in this case, I would like to show you about the data that I got from the official document from the IOC itself. This here shows the data from the IOC that shows the women representation is still below the men's. In this case, we got from the IOC members and the female representations in IOC. The first one is about IOC members that is comparing the representations of women and men both in the 2021 and 2024. We could see from the data here that is IOC members from women is still lesser than men. Here in 2021, the representations of women is still very low, which is about around 38%, while men is 62%. While in the 2024, there's still general imbalance, which is women representations is only about 43%, while men is 57%. Also in the female representations in the M.Si governing bodies, also if governing bodies, there is still gender imbalance in the female representations in IOC. And the second point is that gender norms in sports. The gender assumptions that sport is the place for only men is very influencing how the IOC limiting the sport competitions for only men and not women. Historically, women's sport competitions were very limited. Back then, women only allowed to join in a certain kinds of sport competition, which is seen only to be appropriate for women to join. For example, like gymnastics, figure skating, because this kind of sport competition is seen to be graceful or appropriate for women. And how these gender assumptions about women should not involve in strength in combat because it's not women-like. So this show how gender assumption really influencing the IOC. The gender assumptions about women are soft, women are delicate, women are fragile, so they only allowed to join in a certain kind of sport competitions. And the last point is about how the media representations our attention to cover the women's sports. We could compare how the sport competitions of women and men are very different. Because in sport competition that is about men's sector, there are so many media that cover that, there are so many media that advocate or tell you about the men competition sport. While the media that talks about the women's sport competition is very low than men's. And this shows how the gender assumptions about sports is only for men is really influencing also about the media, about the people that talks about sport competitions of women. So this are the analysis of International Olympic Committee through the lens of feminism.
The key insight of IOC from the feminist perspective shows that IOC operates within the network where power is unevenly distributed and inequality is sidelines women as the actors. Based on our research through the documents, it shows that although IOC is already trying to promote gender equality, the woman is remain marginalized in leadership, decision-making, and representation in the sport governance structures. This reflects how masculine norms shape network that tend to make and reproduce stereotypes about sport are just for men, which influences policies, visibility, and opportunities for the women. It is also included in our poster where the marginalized group that overlooked is women, and the masculine races influence the IOC's practice in the stereotypes about sport are just for men.
So the conclusion is that across the 5 documents, the main idea is that gender equality in the Olympic movement is improving, but challenges remain. The IOC and the UN Women have expanded collaboration, increasing women's representation, achieving gender parity at the Paris 2024 Olympics, and strengthening, safeguarding the policies. However, debates around fairness, especially concerning transgender participation and cases like Iman Khalif, show that gender issues in sports are still influenced by scientific uncertainty, racism, misinformation, and wider cultural tension. Overall, gender in sports remains a complex issue that requires balancing inclusion, fairness, and human rights through continued cooperation and evidence-based policy.